A woman knocked on my door holding a toddler and said, "I'm sorry to bother you, but your husband is supposed to pick up his son today." I stared at the blonde woman on my porch, her words not making sense in my brain. "I think you have the wrong house," I said, starting to close the door. The toddler in her arms had my husband's eyes, that exact shade of green with the amber flecks that I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago. "This is 2847 Maple Street, right?" she asked, shifting the boy on her hip. "Derek Quinn lives here?" My hand froze on the doorknob because that was my husband's name and this was definitely our address. The boy was maybe 2 years old with Derek's nose and chin, and he was reaching for a toy truck that hung from the woman's purse. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice coming out strangled. She looked confused and a little annoyed. "I'm Vanessa. Derek's been picking up Theo every Thursday for the past 6 months. She pulled out her phone with her free hand. "He literally texted me an hour ago saying he'd be here by noon." My legs felt weak because it was Thursday, and Derek had told me this morning he had a client meeting downtown that would run until 3. I looked at the time on my phone and it was 12:15. "There must be some mistake," I said. But I was looking at this child who had Derek's cowlick in the exact same spot on the left side of his head. Vanessa's expression shifted from annoyed to worried. "Wait, are you his sister or something?" He said his wife knew about Theo. The world tilted sideways and I had to grab the doorframe to stay standing. "Wife," she said, "wife," which meant she knew he was married. "I'm his wife," I said, and watched her face go completely white. The toddler started crying and reaching toward me like he wanted me to hold him, and that made everything so much worse. Vanessa took a step back, nearly tripping over our welcome mat. "Oh my God, you didn't know." It wasn't a question. She fumbled with her phone, scrolling through messages, and turned the screen toward me. There were dozens of texts from Derek's number talking about pickup times, and whether Theo needed his allergy medicine and reminders about the park playdate next week. The most recent one from an hour ago said, "Running 5 minutes late, be there by 12:15. I screenshot the messages with my own phone before I even realized what I was doing, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. "How long?" I asked, my voice not sounding like mine. Vanessa looked like she might throw up. "We met 3 years ago. He said he was divorced." She kept talking, but I couldn't hear the words over the ringing in my ears, because 3 years ago I was pregnant with our daughter Iris, and going through horrible morning sickness while Derek supposedly worked late every night to pay for the nursery we were building. I pulled out my phone and called Derek, putting it on speaker so Vanessa could hear. It rang 4 times before he answered with his work voice. "Hey babe, I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back?" The lie was so smooth and practiced that it made my stomach turn. "Your son is here," I said, watching Vanessa's face. There was complete silence on the other end for maybe 10 seconds. "What are you talking about?" Derek asked, but his voice had changed to something I'd never heard before. "Vanessa is on my porch with your son Theo, and apparently you've been picking him up every Thursday for 6 months." I watched Vanessa's eyes fill with tears while Theo kept trying to grab my necklace. More silence. Then Derek said, "I can explain." And I laughed because what explanation could possibly make this okay? "You have 10 minutes to get home or I'm calling the police," I said and hung up. Vanessa was crying now, ugly sobs that made Theo cry harder. "He said you were divorced. He showed me papers. I invited her inside because whatever was about to happen, the neighbors didn't need to see it. She sat on my couch, the same couch Derek and I had picked out together 4 years ago, and I noticed Theo was wearing a shirt with trucks on it that I'd seen in Derek's car last week. I'd asked him about it and he said his sister's kid had left it there. I didn't even know he had a sister because Derek was an only child." "When did you meet?" I asked, sitting across from her in the chair where I nursed Iris every night. Vanessa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "At a coffee shop downtown. He said he was a consultant who traveled a lot for work." That part was true. Derek did travel frequently, or so I thought. "How often did he see Theo?" She looked at the floor. "Every Thursday afternoon, and sometimes on weekends when he said he had business trips." My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Please don't do this. We need to talk in private." I showed it to Vanessa and she started crying harder. I opened our family photos on my phone and showed her the pictures from our wedding 7 years ago, from Iris's birth 2 years ago, from our vacation to the beach last summer where Derek had his arm around me while we watched the sunset. She covered her mouth with her hand. He showed me divorce papers. They had a case number and everything. I walked to Derek's home office and found his filing cabinet unlocked because why would he lock it when I wasn't supposed to know about any of this? The folder labeled legal had copies of fake divorce papers that looked incredibly official with a case number that I checked on my phone and didn't exist in any court system. He'd had them made professionally. The level of planning that took made me feel sick. I heard a car door slam and Derek was suddenly in our living room, stopping dead when he saw Vanessa and Theo on our couch. His face went through several expressions: shock, fear, anger, resignation, all in about 3 seconds. "Vanessa, I can explain," he started, but she stood up so fast that Theo started crying again. "You're married," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "You have a daughter. I've been raising your son alone while you played house with your actual family." I stayed quiet in the doorway, watching Derek try to figure out which lie to tell first. He looked at me and opened his mouth, but I held up the fake divorce papers and his face crumpled. "Where's Iris?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. He swallowed hard. "At your mom's. You dropped her off this morning for their Thursday lunch. Every Thursday for the past 6 months while I thought I was being a good daughter by giving my mom quality time with her granddaughter, Derek had been picking up his son from another woman." "Sit down," I told him, and something in my voice made him actually do it. Vanessa was still standing, swaying slightly while holding Theo. How many others are there? I asked. Derek's eyes went wide. What? No, it's just... Vanessa cut him off. He said he loved me. He said once his business was stable, we'd get married. She looked at me. He has a framed photo of Theo on his desk at work. My blood ran cold because Derek's office was in a building downtown that I'd never been to because he said clients were always there, and it wouldn't be professional. I pulled out my phone and called his work number, putting it on speaker. His assistant answered. Quinn Consulting, this is Patricia. I asked to speak to Derek, and she said he wasn't in today. Has he been in at all this week? I asked. Patricia sounded confused. He's been working from home this month. Is everything okay, Mrs. Quinn? I looked at Derek and watched him realize I knew that was a lie too. Thank you, Patricia, I said and hung up. Where do you actually work? Derek ran his hands through his hair. That nervous gesture I'd always found endearing. Now it just made me angry. I do consulting. I just work from different locations. Vanessa pulled out her phone. He works at Jensen Analytics. I've been there. She showed me photos of Derek in an office with other people, clearly not working alone. I searched the company name and found their website, and there he was on the Our Team page. Senior Data Analyst Derek Quinn, with our last name but not his supposed consulting business. The website said he'd been with the company for 6 years. Every single thing was a lie. I took screenshots of everything while Derek sat there watching his entire double life collapse in real time. Does Jensen Analytics know you've been telling clients you run your own consulting business? I asked. His silence was answer enough. My phone rang, and it was my best friend Kelsey, who I'd told this morning that Derek was working late again tonight. I answered and told her I needed her to come over right now. It was an emergency. She heard something in my voice and said she'd be there in 15 minutes. I looked at Vanessa. Does your family know about Derek? She shook her head. He said it was too complicated because of the divorce and custody battle. He said your family was trying to take everything. Another elaborate lie. Theo had fallen asleep on her shoulder, completely exhausted from crying. I took a photo of him, then one of Derek sitting on our couch looking like his world was ending. I opened our bank statements on my phone and started scrolling. There they were. Cash withdrawals every week. How much child support have you been paying? I asked Vanessa. She looked uncomfortable. He gives me $2,000 a month. I showed Derek the screen. These withdrawals are $500 every week. That's $2,000 a month. Where's the other money going? Derek's face somehow got paler. I can explain all of this if you just let me. Vanessa started laughing. This broken sound that made me feel sorry for her despite everything. There's no explanation that makes this okay. The doorbell rang and Kelsey walked in, took one look at the scene and said, "What the hell is going on?" I handed her my phone with all the screenshots. Derek has a 2-year-old son that I didn't know about. He's been living a double life for 3 years, possibly longer. Kelsey's face went through the same expressions Derek's had earlier, but ended on pure rage. Are you kidding me right now? She got right in Derek's face. You made her plan your birthday party last month. You cried at Iris's dance recital. You bought her flowers on her Mother's Day. Her voice got louder with each sentence. You stood up at her dad's funeral and gave a speech about family being everything. That last part hit me because my dad had died 8 months ago and Derek had been my rock through it all. Or so I thought. Now I wondered if he'd used my grief as cover for more lies. I walked to the kitchen and pulled out the credit card statements from our junk drawer where Derek always filed them. I'd never looked at them closely because I trusted him to handle our finances. There, buried in pages of normal purchases, were charges to restaurants in cities we'd never visited together, hotel rooms during his business trips, flowers sent to an address I didn't recognize. I brought them back to the living room and dropped them on the coffee table. How long has this been going on? Derek put his head in his hands. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Work was stressful, and Vanessa just understood me in a way that I cut him off. Do not finish that sentence. Vanessa was looking at the credit card statements now, and her hand stopped on one of the charges. That's not my address. She looked at Derek with new horror. Whose address is that? Derek's silence told us everything. Oh my God, Vanessa said, standing up again. There's someone else? She grabbed her purse with her free hand. You know what? I don't even want to know. I'm done. She started toward the door, but I stopped her. Wait, I need to ask you something. She turned, tears streaming down her face. Did he ever mention anyone named Whitney? I'd found that name in his phone 3 months ago under Gym Buddy, and he'd explained it was a guy from work. She shook her head, but Kelsey was already pulling out her phone and searching. Whitney Fletcher lives at 3847 Riverside Drive. That was the address on the credit card statement for the flowers. Kelsey showed us her Facebook profile, and there were photos of her with Derek at restaurants, at the beach, at what looked like someone's wedding. I felt like I was watching all of this happen to someone else. This couldn't be my life. My husband, who made me coffee every morning and read bedtime stories to Iris in funny voices, couldn't be the same person who built this elaborate web of lies. Vanessa was pulling up her own phone now, scrolling through messages. He told me he was working when these photos were posted. She showed me timestamps that proved Derek was with Whitney when he told Vanessa he was in business meetings. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Iris is asking when Daddy's coming to pick her up for their ice cream date. Ice cream date. I looked at Derek. What ice cream date? He wouldn't meet my eyes. I promised her we'd go today, but he'd also promised Vanessa he'd pick up Theo. He was double booking his own children. The realization made my hands shake with rage. How were you planning to be in 2 places at once? His voice was small. I was going to tell Iris I had to work late. Kelsey made a disgusted sound. You were going to disappoint your daughter to cover up your other family. She looked at me. Please tell me you're calling a lawyer. I was already Googling divorce attorneys on my phone. The first one that came up had good reviews and listed high-conflict custody cases as their specialty. I called and explained I needed an emergency consultation. The receptionist heard something in my voice and said they could fit me in at 4 o'clock today. I wrote down the address while Derek watched. "You're not even going to let me explain?" he asked, and I laughed because the audacity was incredible. "Explain what? That you've been lying about where you work? That you have a secret son? That there's apparently a third woman somewhere? What part of this has an explanation that makes it okay?" Vanessa was at the door now, still holding sleeping Theo. "I need his medical records for a paternity test." Derek stood up. "You know he's mine." "I don't know anything anymore," Vanessa shot back. "You've been lying since the day we met. I need proof before I put your name on his birth certificate." That detail made me freeze. "His birth certificate doesn't have a father listed?" Vanessa shook her head. "Derek said it was better to wait until after the divorce was final. He said it would be cleaner for custody." She looked at me. "I'm so sorry. I never would have, if I'd known." Her voice broke. "I have a 2-year-old son because I believed him when he said he loved me. I gave her my phone number and told her to text me. We need to figure this out together. For the kids." She nodded and left, and I watched through the window as she strapped Theo into a car seat in her beat-up sedan. Derek had been driving a brand new SUV for the past year that he said was a company car. Another lie, probably. "I need you to leave," I told Derek. He looked shocked. "This is my house." Kelsey stepped between us. "Actually, it's in both your names, which means she has every right to tell you to get out." He looked at me with what might have been genuine pain. "We've been together 9 years. We have a daughter. You're not even going to hear my side?" I thought about Iris, who was probably eating lunch with my mom right now, completely unaware that her world was about to shatter. "Your side is that you built an entire fake life for 3 years. You have a son I didn't know existed. You lied about where you work. There are probably more lies I haven't even found yet." My voice was getting louder. "You let me plan our future while you were living 3 different lives. You watched me struggle with postpartum depression after Iris was born while you were starting a relationship with Vanessa. You held my hand at my father's funeral while using my grief to sneak around." Derek tried to grab my hand, but Kelsey pushed him back. "Don't touch her." He was crying now. "I love you. I love Iris. It got out of control." I pulled out my phone and showed him the fake divorce papers. "This didn't get out of control. You planned this. You had legal documents forged. You created an entire fake consulting business. You scheduled your lies on a calendar. I'd found that too. A second Google Calendar on his laptop that I'd thought was for work. Every Thursday afternoon blocked as tea pickup. Weekend blocks marked V time or W dinner. He'd been juggling 3 women like it was a project plan. "Pack a bag," I said. "You can stay at a hotel while I figure out what to do." He stood there looking at me, then at Kelsey, then back at me. "Please, let's just talk about this tomorrow when you've calmed down." The condescension in his voice flipped a switch in my brain. "I am calm. This is me calm. You want to see me not calm?" I walked to his office and started pulling files from his cabinet. Medical records for Theo with Derek listed as father. Insurance cards for Vanessa under Derek's company plan. Bank statements from an account I didn't know existed. Credit cards in Derek's name with Vanessa listed as an authorized user. Every piece of evidence of his secret life, I laid out on the kitchen table while Kelsey took photos with her phone. Derek tried to stop me, but Kelsey blocked him. "You don't get to hide this anymore." I found a folder labeled WHF, and inside were lease documents for an apartment downtown. The tenant was listed as Whitney H. Fletcher, and the co-signer was Derek Quinn. He'd been paying for her apartment for 8 months. The rent was $2,800 a month, which explained where the extra money from those weekly cash withdrawals was going. "You're paying her rent while I've been clipping coupons to save for Iris's college fund?" My voice cracked. "I've been buying generic groceries and skipping haircuts to save money while you funded an entire second household?" Kelsey found more files. These from a storage unit I didn't know we had. The rental agreement showed Derek had been paying for it for 2 years. "What's in the storage unit?" I asked. He wouldn't answer, so I called the storage facility and pretended to be him. The manager gave me the code after I provided Derek's license number that I'd memorized years ago. I told Kelsey we were going there right now, and Derek tried to block the door. "You can't just go through my private property." I looked at him. "Your private property? We're married. There is no private property in this state. Everything you own, I own half of." Kelsey called her husband and told him to meet us at the storage facility to help if Derek got physical. Derek just stood there looking defeated. There's nothing there, just some old work files. That made me want to check it even more. I grabbed my purse and keys, told Derek again to pack a bag and be gone by the time I got back, and walked out. Kelsey drove while I sat in the passenger seat shaking, scrolling through our joint bank account on my phone app. There were so many small charges I'd never questioned. $50 here for office supplies, $75 there for client dinners. All of them probably lies. I added them up and it was thousands of dollars over the past few years, money that could have gone to Iris's education or our retirement or actual family vacations instead of funding Derek's double life. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. I called a lawyer. They said I can file for child support. I'm sorry about all of this. I texted back that she had nothing to apologize for. We're both victims here. Let me know what you need for the paternity test. She sent me the name of a lab that did court-admissible DNA testing. I forwarded it to my lawyer's office that I hadn't even met yet. This was my life now, coordinating paternity tests for my husband's secret child. The storage unit was in a facility on the edge of town, the kind of place where people stored furniture and Christmas decorations. Derek's unit was in the back corner, away from the main buildings. I entered the code and the lock clicked open. Inside was nothing like old work files. There were boxes of baby clothes, toys, photo albums I'd never seen. Kelsey pulled one out and opened it. Pictures of Derek with Vanessa when she was pregnant. Derek at what looked like a baby shower. Derek holding newborn Theo in a hospital room. He was there for Theo's birth, Kelsey said quietly. I calculated the dates. That was 4 months before my dad died. I'd been calling Derek constantly that day because Dad was in hospice and I needed support, and Derek said he was stuck in meetings that ran late. He was actually at the hospital with Vanessa while my father was dying. The rage that filled me was so strong I had to sit down on one of the boxes. Kelsey kept digging and found another photo album. This one was Whitney with Derek at what looked like a ski resort. Whitney with Derek at someone's anniversary party. Whitney kissing Derek in front of what I recognized as the Eiffel Tower. He went to Paris? Kelsey asked, flipping through more photos. When did he go to Paris? I remembered. 8 months ago, Derek had a business conference in Chicago that lasted 5 days. He'd sent me pictures from his hotel room and texted about boring presentations. The photos had been lies, too. He'd been in Paris with Whitney while telling me he was in Illinois. I pulled out my phone and searched for flights from Chicago to Paris. The timing worked if he'd flown out the day he said his conference started. Every piece of his story was falling apart like wet tissue paper. There were more boxes, and Kelsey found one labeled important in Derek's handwriting. Inside were legal documents setting up a trust fund for Theo with $50,000 already deposited. He set up a trust fund for his secret kid, Kelsey said, showing me the papers. Did he set one up for Iris? I knew the answer because I'd been the one asking Derek about starting a college fund for Iris, and he kept saying we needed to wait until we were more financially stable. Meanwhile, he'd found $50,000 to put away for Theo. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else so far. He'd prioritized his secret child over our daughter. I took photos of everything, then started loading boxes into Kelsey's SUV. What are you doing? She asked. I was beyond rational thought now. Evidence. The lawyer is going to need all of this. We filled her entire vehicle with boxes and made 2 trips back to my house. Derek's car was gone when we got there, and he'd left a note on the kitchen table. I'm staying at the Marriott on 5th Street. Please call me when you're ready to talk like adults. I love you. I crumpled the note and threw it away, then opened the lawyer's website and filled out their emergency intake form online. My phone rang, and it was my mom asking if Derek was coming to get Iris because she was getting antsy. I told her I'd pick Iris up myself and could she please keep her for dinner because I had some things to handle. Mom heard something in my voice. Is everything okay? I couldn't hold it together anymore and started crying. Derek has another son. He's been lying about everything for years. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Mom said, I'll keep Iris tonight. Take all the time you need. She didn't ask more questions, just said she loved me and hung up. I sat on my kitchen floor surrounded by boxes of Derek's secret life and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. Kelsey sat next to me and didn't say anything, just put her arm around me while I fell apart. After maybe 20 minutes, I pulled myself together and started going through the boxes methodically. There was a baby book for Theo with all his milestones documented in Vanessa's handwriting. First smile at 6 weeks. First tooth at 7 months. First steps at 13 months. All moments Derek had been there for, apparently. There were birthday cards from Derek to Theo for his first and second birthdays, filled with messages about how much he loved his son. My hands shook reading them because he'd written similar cards to Iris. The words were almost identical. He'd copied and pasted his affection across multiple families. I found receipts for things I'd never seen. A diamond bracelet purchased last Valentine's Day that wasn't the flowers he'd brought me. A weekend at a bed and breakfast in wine country where he'd told me he was at a conference. Dinner at expensive restaurants on nights he'd said he was working late. Everything documented in black and white, proving the scope of his lies. Kelsey found a laptop in one of the boxes and opened it. It's not password protected. She started clicking through files while I kept digging. Oh my God, Kelsey said, turning the laptop toward me. Email exchanges between Derek and Whitney going back 2 years. He'd met her at his actual job at Jensen Analytics. She worked in marketing. The emails started professional, then friendly, then flirty, then explicit. I couldn't read most of them without feeling sick. They talked about me sometimes. Whitney had asked if Derek was sure about leaving his wife, and he'd said he was just waiting for the right time. That was 6 months ago. He'd been planning to leave me for Whitney while telling Vanessa he'd marry her when his divorce was final. Every woman in his life was being lied to, just in different ways. Kelsey kept scrolling and found financial records. Derek had 3 separate bank accounts I didn't know about. One with Vanessa as joint holder. One that was just his name. One with Whitney as an authorized user. The one that was just his had almost $80,000 in it. He has secret savings, Kelsey said. Like a lot of secret savings. I logged into our actual joint savings account and found $8,000. That was it. $8,000 after 9 years of marriage and supposedly careful saving. Derek had 10 times that amount hidden away in an account where I'd never think to look. Can your lawyer get this in the divorce? Kelsey asked. I was already texting the lawyer's office photos of the account statements. They texted back in minutes saying yes, and to bring everything to my appointment at 4. It was only 2 o'clock now, which meant I had 2 hours to keep digging through Derek's lies. I found his phone records in another box, printed statements going back 3 years. The numbers he'd called most frequently weren't mine. I cross-referenced them and found Vanessa's number, Whitney's number, and 3 others I didn't recognize. He might have more women, Kelsey said what I was thinking. I called the first unknown number from my phone. A woman answered. Hello? I asked if she knew Derek Quinn. Pause. Who's asking? That was answer enough. I'm his wife. How do you know him? She hung up immediately. I called back, but it went to voicemail. I tried the second number and got a voicemail without listening to the greeting. The third number rang and rang until a man answered. Yeah? I asked the same question. Derek Quinn? Yeah. We work together. Who is this? Just a coworker. I apologized and hung up. One confirmed unknown woman. Possibly more. The scope of Derek's lies was so massive I couldn't process it. Kelsey made me eat something while we kept working through boxes. I found a checkbook for one of the secret accounts with stubs showing payments. $2,000 monthly to Vanessa like she'd said. $2,800 monthly to the apartment lease for Whitney. $500 monthly to something called Storage Solutions, which was probably this unit. He was spending over $5,000 a month maintaining his secret life, money that came from somewhere because our joint account never showed withdrawals that large. He must be making way more than he told you, Kelsey said, pulling up Jensen Analytics' website. Their salary ranges for senior analysts started at $120,000 a year. Derek had told me he made $75,000. Another lie. Another huge, significant lie about the foundation of our marriage. I'd based every financial decision on thinking we had a specific income. I'd gone back to work part-time after Iris was born because Derek said we needed my income to stay afloat. He'd let me work myself exhausted handling a toddler and a job because he was pretending to make $45,000 less than his actual salary. The extra money went to funding his other families. I felt sick again and had to go splash cold water on my face in the bathroom. When I came back, Kelsey had found more documents. Life insurance policies for Theo with Derek as the policyholder. Health insurance records showing Vanessa and Theo were covered under Derek's work policy as domestic partners. I wasn't even sure that was legal. Could you claim two different women as domestic partners? I added it to the list of questions for the lawyer. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from Derek. Please call me. We need to talk. I can explain everything. Don't make decisions while you're emotional. That last one made me want to throw my phone at the wall. I texted back. I'm meeting with a divorce attorney at 4 p.m. Bring me anything you want me to see before then, or my lawyer will subpoena everything. His response came immediately. You're not being rational. I blocked his number. Kelsey high-fived me. Good. He doesn't get to gaslight you anymore. We spent the next hour organizing everything into folders labeled by category. Financial documents, communication records, photos, legal papers, medical records. By the time we were done, I had 3 banker's boxes full of evidence of Derek's triple life. Kelsey's husband arrived to help load everything into my car. He hugged me and said if I needed anything, just call. Do you want me to go with you to the lawyer? Kelsey asked. I shook my head. I need to do this part alone. She made me promise to text her afterward, and I agreed. The drive to the lawyer's office felt surreal. I kept thinking I'd wake up and this would be a nightmare. But the boxes in my backseat were real. The photos on my phone were real. Derek's son was real. The lawyer's name was Francine Talbot, and she looked like she could destroy someone in court without breaking a sweat. Her office was all dark wood and law books, the kind of place that cost money just to walk into. She sat across from me and listened while I explained everything, interrupting only to ask clarifying questions. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is one of the more extreme cases I've seen. The fake divorce documents alone are potentially criminal fraud. She pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. How much do you want to destroy him? The question surprised me. I want full custody of Iris. I want the house. I want every penny of those secret accounts. I want him to pay for what he did. Francine smiled. We can do all of that. She explained the process while I sat there trying to focus. Emergency custody hearing, asset freeze, discovery process to find any other hidden money, subpoenas for his work records and phone records. This will get ugly, she warned. He'll fight back. Let him fight, I said. I have 3 boxes of evidence. We spent 2 hours going through everything. Francine took photos of the key documents and had her assistant scan them all. By the time I left her office, it was past 6 and I was exhausted. I called my mom and asked if Iris could sleep over. Of course, honey. Are you okay? I wasn't okay. I didn't know if I'd ever be okay again. But I told her I was handling it and would explain everything tomorrow. Kelsey had texted that she'd ordered dinner to be delivered to my house. When I got home, there was pizza on the porch and a note from her saying she loved me. I sat alone in my kitchen, eating cold pizza and looking at the empty spaces where Derek's things used to be. He'd packed more than I told him to. His desk was cleared out. His clothes were mostly gone from the closet. He'd taken his toiletries from the bathroom. It was like he'd known this was coming and had been ready to disappear. That realization hit hard. Maybe he'd always had an exit strategy. Maybe he'd been prepared to abandon any of us if his lies caught up with him. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered and heard Vanessa's voice. I'm sorry to call. I got your number from Derek's phone before I left today. She sounded like she'd been crying. I can't stop thinking about Iris. Does she know about Theo? I told her no, and I had no idea how to explain this to a 6-year-old. Theo doesn't really understand who Derek is. He just knows him as the man who visits. We sat in silence for a moment. I looked up Whitney Fletcher, Vanessa said. She posted today about a romantic dinner date with Derek. My stomach dropped. He'd gone straight from our house to be with Whitney. I'll send you the link, Vanessa said. I pulled it up on my phone and there was Whitney's Instagram post from an hour ago. Her and Derek at an upscale restaurant, his arm around her, her caption reading, "Date night with my love." The comments were full of people saying they looked perfect together. I took screenshots and sent them to Francine. This would help in court. The next morning, I woke up in my bed alone for the first time in 9 years and spent 5 minutes crying before I forced myself to get up. I had to pick up Iris and tell her that Daddy wouldn't be living with us anymore, but I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. I texted Mom asking if Iris could stay one more day. She called instead of texting. Sweetheart, you're going to have to tell her eventually. I knew that, but not today. I couldn't fall apart in front of my daughter today. Mom agreed to keep her through the weekend. I spent the morning on the phone with the bank, freezing our joint accounts so Derek couldn't drain them. The representative needed police documentation of fraud, so I filed a report about the fake divorce papers. The officer who took my statement looked increasingly concerned as I explained everything. This is financial abuse, he said. You should document everything for a restraining order too, if you feel unsafe. I hadn't even thought about being unsafe, but now it occurred to me that I didn't actually know Derek at all. If he could lie this thoroughly about everything, what else was he capable of? The officer gave me paperwork for an emergency protective order. I told him I'd think about it. Francine texted me that she'd filed the emergency custody motion, and we had a hearing scheduled for Monday morning. That was 3 days away. 3 days to prepare to tell a judge why Derek shouldn't have access to his daughter. I spent the afternoon creating a timeline of every lie I'd discovered, documenting everything with dates and evidence. Kelsey came over with her laptop and helped me organize it into a presentation. By evening, I had a 40-page document detailing Derek's deception. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I answered and heard a woman's voice I'd never heard before. Is this Mrs. Quinn? When I said yes, she took a breath. My name is Simone. I need to tell you about your husband. Another one. There was another woman. She explained that she and Derek had been seeing each other for 6 months. She'd found out today from a mutual friend about his secret families. I thought we were building a life together, she said through tears. He talked about marriage. That made 4. Vanessa, Whitney, Simone, and me. 4 women he'd been juggling simultaneously. The logistics alone were astounding. I added Simone to a group chat with Vanessa and myself. We needed to compare notes. Within an hour, we'd figured out that Derek had different lives scheduled like meetings. Mondays and Wednesdays with Whitney, Thursdays with Vanessa and Theo, Friday nights rotating between Simone and me, weekends split between various commitments he'd made to all of us. He'd built an entire ecosystem of lies that somehow functioned until the woman who showed up at my door destroyed it all. Vanessa sent screenshots of Derek's calendar from his laptop that she'd gotten access to months ago when he asked her to check his schedule. Every commitment was color-coded. I was blue. Whitney was purple. Vanessa was green. Simone was yellow. His work commitments were red, and there were barely any of those. Most of his work trips were time with one of us, labeled in his color-coding system. Whitney joined the group chat after Simone reached out to her directly. I can't believe this is happening, Whitney typed. He told me he was divorced. She sent a photo of Derek's fake divorce papers that were slightly different from the ones he'd shown Vanessa. He'd customized his lies for each woman. We spent hours that night sharing information, piecing together the scope of his deception. Derek had told each of us different stories about why he couldn't fully commit yet. I was the actual wife who didn't know about any of the others. Vanessa thought she was the girlfriend waiting for his divorce to finalize. Whitney thought she was the new relationship post-divorce. Simone thought she was the woman he'd finally found after years of being alone. Every story was tailored perfectly to what each woman wanted to hear. Whitney shared photos from Paris. I thought this was our special trip, she said. Then Vanessa shared photos from a different trip to Paris 6 months earlier. He'd taken both of them to the same city, stayed at the same hotel, probably took them to the same restaurants. Simone had photos from a ski trip that overlapped with one of Derek's supposed business conferences. He'd told me he was in Seattle for work while he was in Colorado with her. Every piece of evidence made the picture clearer. Derek wasn't just a cheater. He was running a full operation, complete with fake documents, secret finances, and carefully maintained alibis. The planning and effort he'd put into maintaining 4 separate relationships was more work than most people put into their actual jobs. We should all show up to court on Monday, Vanessa suggested in the group chat. Francine said she could call some of them as witnesses if they were willing. All 3 agreed immediately. Derek was about to face all 4 of his girlfriends in the same room. The divorce hearing on Monday morning felt like waiting for a bomb to drop. I arrived early with Francine and took a seat in the courtroom. Vanessa came in with Theo, who was clutching a stuffed truck. Whitney arrived alone, looking nervous. Simone sat in the back row wearing dark sunglasses even though we were inside. Derek walked in with his attorney and stopped dead when he saw all of us. The color drained from his face completely. His lawyer leaned over and whispered something urgently. Derek just shook his head, looking defeated. The judge came in and we all stood. Judge Patricia Hammond looked like someone's grandmother, but had a reputation for destroying liars in her courtroom. Francine presented our case first, laying out the evidence of Derek's multiple families, the financial fraud, the fake divorce documents. She called Vanessa to testify about Theo and the 3 years of lies. She called Whitney, who described the Paris trip and the apartment Derek paid for. She called Simone, who explained the 6 months of false promises. I testified last, walking through every discovery from the woman at my door to the boxes in the storage unit. When I finished, Judge Hammond looked at Derek. Do you have anything to say? Derek stood up, his lawyer trying to pull him back down. I love my wife. I made mistakes, but I want to fix this. The judge's expression didn't change. You forged legal documents. You committed financial fraud. You maintained multiple households through deception. These aren't mistakes, Mr. Quinn. This is systemic abuse. She ruled in my favor on every point. Full custody of Iris with supervised visitation only. Immediate asset freeze on all accounts. Derek was ordered to turn over financial records for every account he'd accessed in the past 5 years. The house stayed in my name. Child support was set based on his actual salary, not the fake one he'd told me. The judge also referred the fake divorce documents to the prosecutor's office for criminal charges. Derek sat there watching his entire world collapse in a 2-hour hearing. As we left the courtroom, he tried to approach me. Please, can we just talk? I kept walking. Vanessa stopped and said, You owe me 3 years of child support. My lawyer will be in touch. Whitney didn't say anything, just walked past him like he didn't exist. Simone paused and said, I dodged a bullet. I hope you get what you deserve. I felt nothing looking at him now. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. He'd used up every emotion I had for him over 3 days of revelations. The next morning, I picked up Iris from my mom's house and took her to the park. We sat on a bench and I tried to find words to explain that her family had shattered. Mommy needs to tell you something about Daddy, I started. Iris looked up at me with his eyes and I almost couldn't continue. Daddy did some things that weren't okay. He made some bad choices and he's not going to live with us anymore. Her face crumpled. Did I do something wrong? My heart broke completely. No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. Daddy made choices that hurt our family, but none of that is your fault. She cried and I held her while she processed this new reality. Eventually, she asked if she'd still see Daddy, and I told her yes, but differently now. I didn't mention Theo yet. That conversation would come later when she was ready. For now, she needed to know she was loved and safe, and nothing that happened was because of her. That night, after Iris finally fell asleep in my bed because she didn't want to be alone, I sat in the dark living room and thought about the woman who'd knocked on my door. Vanessa had accidentally destroyed Derek's carefully constructed lies by showing up at the wrong house at the wrong time. If she'd called first, he probably would have made an excuse. If she'd been even 5 minutes earlier or later, I might have been out running errands. The timing had to be perfect for everything to unravel exactly as it did. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if she'd never knocked. Would I still be living in ignorance while Derek juggled his multiple lives? Would I have figured it out eventually? Or would he have maintained this forever? The not knowing had been its own kind of torture before, blaming myself for small things while having no idea about the massive deception happening right in front of me. Now I knew everything, and somehow that was worse and better at the same time. The criminal charges against Derek for the forged documents took 3 months to process. He was charged with fraud and identity theft for creating fake legal papers. He pled guilty to avoid trial and got 6 months in county jail plus probation. Vanessa's paternity test confirmed Theo was his, and she was awarded substantial child support. Whitney moved to a different city and blocked all of us on social media. Simone started dating someone else and sent me a thank you card for saving her from years of lies. I focused on rebuilding my life and helping Iris process her new reality. Therapy helped. So did the support group for divorced parents that my lawyer recommended. 6 months after that knock on my door, I was sitting in my living room when Iris asked about the brother she'd learned about in therapy. Can I meet him someday? I'd been expecting this question, but still wasn't prepared for it. I texted Vanessa and asked if she'd be okay with a supervised playdate. She agreed immediately. The next Saturday, Theo and Iris met at a park playground, while Vanessa and I sat on a bench watching them. They were shy at first, but soon they were playing together like they'd known each other forever. Watching them laugh, I realized that Derek's lies had created something unexpected. 2 kids who'd never have known each other were now building a relationship. It wasn't the family any of us had planned for, but it was ours now. Appreciate you watching this far. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next story.